Hey everyone, welcome to Crossroad Conversations with the Lewis brothers, where we aim to share real stories about running a successful family business while working through adversity and pouring back into our community that keeps our doors open every single day. We're your hosts, Shelby, Matt, and Taylor, and we'll be bringing you real, relevant local business advice, maybe some automotive insights that are sure to change the way you look at running a business or buying a car, and maybe even throw in a plug for you to do business with us here locally.
If you want the high performers, you could ask any professional team out there, the general manager or the coach, they say, this person is so difficult to manage and rein in.
Oh, yeah. They're like, that person's a pure nightmare. All right, guys, welcome back to the podcast, Crossroad Conversations with Matt, Shelby, and Taylor, as we dive into episode number 6. And we're going to fully dive into what's going on. Hey, quick, fun, diving in. Last week, we released our first podcast.
Oh, yeah. I know you're listening to episode 6 today, but last week was the first episode that went live. And this is such a fun journey for us.
Yeah.
I know you're supposed to get into the episode, but it's so cool to hear the feedback and the people that it's affecting in Northwest Arkansas. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. So this week, we're going to dive into one of the things that we get to do, love to do every single day. And the topic we want to say, managing difficult employees. Mm-hmm.
Everybody's got them.
Everybody's got them, and we love most of them, right? Majority of them we love. We're also going to talk about understanding employees, what drives employees, how to handle different employees. When it gets challenging, what do you do? Where do you go? How do you handle it? And conflict that equals success. So we're going to fully dive into those topics today and unpack it all and hopefully give you something to take away so you not just listen. Hopefully you're learning. So Taylor, from there, where do we go?
So, kicking it off from last week, Shelby, it was managing crisis in the dealership. So, managing different circumstances that came along. You know, we talked about COVID. We talked about computer systems. We talked about everything that revolves around running our business, things that were thrown in, interjected into our pathway that we weren't planning for.
Yeah.
And it's how we pivoted. It's how we went through, how we prevailed through it. But it was about communication. It was about being involved in the situation so that we could grab a hold of the reins really quickly, adjust, and we could move forward.
Yeah.
But that being said, I want to be able to get us into this week, but I got to stop and say, remember and check us out online at lewissuperstore.com. And what do we have planned for the week?
You know, make sure to hit that subscribe button as well so you can get the latest episode that comes out weekly. And follow us on the socials so you can get those snippets of those one-liners that we talk about. Hey, this week is exciting. Last week we talked about managing the overall dealership and what happens to us with what's going on, whether it's in the economy or our systems or the computer, so on and so forth. This week we're going to take a step deeper. Okay, so once you look at the dealership or your business as a whole, then you got to go inside it. Okay, it's your employees that are what makes the difference. Now, all those employees are not the easiest to manage. They're not. We're all blessed with all different type of personalities, including the three of us. And we're all brothers here and we're family, but each of us operates different. And what's important to one is not important to the other. You know, and the motivating factors there. And I promise you, you have the same thing out there, and that's what we're going to dive in today. Really 3 core pieces here. What makes your employees tick? Meaning what motivates them? What's their why? Number 2, what do you do when it gets challenging? Maybe you get pushed back from a high performer. And then maybe a couple stories on where we've had conflict and we've turned that into success. So grab your cup of coffee, crank it up if you're in your car or you got it in your headphones, and listen in today. Our goal is to bring you relevant information that'll help you better manage employees. All right, subject number 1 is what makes each employee tick. What we mean by that, or what are the hot buttons? So you guys think about that. What's their why? Meaning, why do they want to be at the dealership in our case, or why do they want to be at your business? And then what are their strengths and what are their weaknesses, and how do you identify those and then go forward? So let's talk first about hot buttons. And I'll volley that up. Either one of y'all can grab that. Hot buttons. How do you discover what your employees' hot buttons are?
I think it's super important. You have to know who your employees are.
Okay.
You have to, and it's on a personal level. And like oftentimes, you know, we generally are throughout the business all day to be able to get a real world pulse. What's going on? How are things working? And oftentimes it's a high five, or you have to be careful of not to say, hey, how are you doing? Because there's a situation for a breakdown.
Sure.
But there's a lot of times it's just a situation for a pump up. You know, like, hey, is anybody oftentimes things I'll say when I walk past an employee that maybe needs a little boost, I say, hey, has anyone told you how nice your smile is?
Sure.
Now, that's code word for you're not smiling.
Sure.
No, I got you.
But they laugh at that. But it's getting to know your employees. So then understanding, is there why they're kids?
Okay.
Is it their weekend activities? Are they dirt track racing?
Gotcha.
Are they going mountain biking? So it's so much fun. So that's not as you pass by. But,
Sure.
I can say, hey, Jimmy, what trails you ride this weekend?
There you go.
Hey, how's your son doing on his new e-bike?
You bet. You bet.
And so I would say getting to know your employees.
But let's give a tip out there. What about, especially if you're in an industry that maybe you work in a service industry that you're not next to those employees every single day, how are you going to know what they're into? You follow any of your employees on social?
Yeah, I would say majority of them.
So and you'll see stuff posted up there, and then you're like, well, hey, tell me about the game you went to last week.
Yeah, unless it's politics, then we're not.
We're not getting
I'm not
into
going to
that.
ask people what they think about this versus that.
Taylor, how do your employees in your department, how do you figure out what their hot buttons are?
So you have to make sure, and I think Shelby already hit the nail on the head there, because a lot of times we find ourselves that you will be working hard, moving forward, driving yourself, and you have to slow down to be able to observe that and figure it out. But it's really just going through and listening to them. We talk about it all the time whenever we're in training. You've got 2 ears and 1 mouth, and you have to really listen. You can talk and say a whole lot of things, but I find myself in the whole grand scheme of it, of being in sales or with different managers or in parts or service, wherever it would be, of listening. I could ask a couple of key things, but if I just listen, you'll hear what's going on. You'll hear about what they did over the weekend, what game they were at, what baseball game they were. Hey, they're into traveling ball, they're into bike riding, they're into this. So I really find myself really effective of listening, and then after I listen, I'll circle back around, and then I will be able to engage of, hey, I heard about this. Or, we had a really great employee that she had just set somebody off. Son's just starting in the military, and being able to listen of, hey, how's he doing in the military?
Sure.
And you only find that stuff out by listening. So really listening to my employees.
I think you need to understand what Taylor said right there is he asked the question to listen and learn about the employees. And I've been caught in this before too, that you listen just to get down the road or to the next subject,
yes.
and that's the wrong way to do it. You need to listen so you gain the knowledge and you can actually learn about them, so then you can be able to regurgitate and figure out what makes them tick there.
That's so important. And I remember one time in a training session breaking down listening, like what actually listening is, and all these details of a podcast or something I read online of like, are you listening to respond? So you're not really listening at all. You're listening when they're done talking. Are you listening to learn? Are you listening to lead? Or are you listening to comprehend? And then you just get to learn. It's so much fun, like of just realizing I've got this employee that, there's a real connection to them. And they're, so then whether it be, there's one guy in the shop that was buying his first house.
Sure, yeah.
And it was like a 9-month process of looking at this house.
I know.
And it wasn't from his lack of effort. There's just a lot of things. So it's fun just to cruise by and say, hey, how's it going? Did we find the house?
That's exactly
and
right.
then asking about their kids. It makes work be less work.
Hey, if you want to test to figure out if you're a good listener or not, the next time somebody is answering a question that you ask, pause and think in your brain, am I thinking about what I'm going to say next, or am I thinking about what they're saying right now? That's the quick telltale. Are you a good listener, or are you just trying to get to the next subject? That's a really big deal there. Very important, though, of listening so your employees can tell you what their hot buttons are.
Yes.
And in case you don't know what hot buttons are what makes somebody tick, why they put their boots on every day, why they show up. We got to understand everybody focuses too much on money. Money is just a currency and an exchange item, whether it's for products or for vacation or whatever it may be. It's just the currency. So what are they really trying to gain with the monetary that they're making at work? And for everybody, that's different. And not only for everybody is it different, it's different depending upon what phase of life they're in. We've had some employees that have been with us for 20 years.
Yeah.
So when they first started, it might be so they could do X, Y, and Z on the weekend. Now it might be because their college fund for their kids.
Yeah.
So a big piece is there. Next, let's get into the why part. The why. That gets into a little bit of what I was going into, or maybe a vacation they have coming up.
Yep.
But what is their why? Why are they at work? It's not just, we're pretty cool to hang out with. And we got really neat facilities. But that's not why they're there.
Yeah.
It's a benefit.
I think the why is once you learn and you listen to the employee, why is when you're sitting down and you're teaching the employee, whether it be if you're teaching in sales and you're teaching of how to go through the process. Your why is when you really sit down and I say, hey, if I'm going through with Shelby and I say, hey, Shelby, why do we need to achieve this goal? What are we trying to do? Are we trying, and you break it down into, you just talked about it. What aspect of life is Shelby and whenever he's going through? So is it, we're just starting out, we're trying to buy the first house? Is it we're trying to go on vacation? Is it I'm trying to put my kids through college? So that's your question of, hey, what can we put on our board? What can we put here that is going to push us whenever we have those character building days, as you would talk it, what's going to push it through? What's going to make me get a state change and put a smile back on my face? That's kind of how I look at diving into it there.
Hey, speaking of diving into it, it's funny you say that. Think of the visual, and if you haven't seen this, don't pause the podcast. Make sure you finish it, but then watch this. Christmas Vacation.
Oh, yes.
So Christmas Vacation.
I know where you're going.
Clark W. Griswold.
There he is.
The whole office is leaving, and what's he doing? He has a 3D model before that was a thing.
Oh, yes.
And he's boing.
On the diving board.
Ice pool.
Yeah.
That was his why.
Have you seen your Christmas bonus yet?
No, I hadn't seen it. Well, you know it'll come, right? We grew up watching that.
I know, he's looking out the window.
It was a visual, and it was the why. And his boss, it blew straight over his head. He didn't even know the guy's name.
Yeah.
And so think of that and laugh at that movie, but then realize that guy had no clue. He had canceled and hit him with the Jelly of the Month Club, the gift that keeps on giving.
Sure.
And he had made a 3D model of his pool. And if there was enough money left, he was going to fly the whole family.
Yes.
He had no clue of the why, of why he was actually coming to work. So don't get caught up in that you're just so busy. Hey, how you doing? Without saying, hey, let me check. Like, understand, why is he coming to work? Why is she coming to work?
If you don't identify somebody's why, you can't get the greatest potential.
No.
And you also don't have a long-term success with an employee. Here's another mistake that you may make that I'm going to bring up to you. Your why and their why are not the same.
It's so rare that it's the same.
I mean, I'm telling you right now, as three brothers in here that have journeyed through life together,
grown up together
in the same house. Yeah, there's a little bit of age difference between each of us, but not a ton. Each of our whys are different, and they changed 2 years ago versus 10 years ago versus 15 years ago. It's no different than when we talk about inventory. We don't order the vehicles that we want to buy.
No.
We order the vehicles that the customer wants to buy.
Correct.
Same thing with your employee. It's what is their why, not your why.
So then I guess understanding their why, then helping them be very productive.
Yes.
Once you understand, hey, I want to build a pool. Hey, I got to get my kids through college. Hey, I got to buy my house. Hey, I want to buy a bike. Hey, I want to go on vacation. So then you get to orient their productivity around that.
So let's talk about a couple examples there that I'll bring up. So once you identify their why, let's say it's to go to Disney World.
Yeah.
Okay, it's to take the family to Disney World. You better help them. We all have this device here, the phone. Let's put on the screensaver.
Yes.
Let's put on the screensaver. Let's change their computer screensaver.
Yeah.
Let's print it off so they can put it on their mirror at home. Their why is what's going to fuel them on the tough days.
Yeah.
You've got to have it visual in front of them, and you not just write it down once and you put it in the bottom drawer of your desk.
Yeah.
It's got to be there in front. I remember a spiff we did, and in our business, we all have these different cash spiffs and these different bonuses for employees that'll come out month. And we're always talking about that. Like, we don't care what it is. It needs to be within this dollar range, but we want to motivate people. I can remember one of the spiffs we did. It was maybe a $200 spiff or $500 spiff. And we said, let's ask the employees to write down a $500 item that they would like to buy. No questions asked. Their spouse can't get on to them for it. No questions asked. They write it down. They turned it into us. And then if they hit their goal, we bought it for them.
Yeah.
And then nobody can ask any questions because they're like, no, that was the bonus. They didn't blow the money on it.
Yes.
Yeah, that was really successful.
It was. We We've sent people on cruises that way. We've sent people on hunting trips that way.
Yes.
We've bought carbon fiber racing wheels for bicycles for that.
Yeah.
Just kind of across the board, right?
We really have.
We bought Harley Davidsons for people. You find that why. Like, hopefully the whole idea is this. Nothing should always be the same.
No, it's always changing.
It should be curtailed to the person.
That's encouraging for the human out there. And I'm not going to get off track on AI, okay, because AI is great. Some of the technology is great. But AI can't duplicate what somebody could figure out somebody's why and their strengths and their weaknesses.
They can't.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So once you identify that, you really make somebody tick. And I'm telling you, it's not the money, it's what the money gives them access to.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have no clue what their tick is or what their why is, chances are if you walk through their space,
It'll be there.
it's there.
Yeah. Walk around their car. They got a bumper sticker or they've got a, whatever it is, a fox or a fuel sticker on the back window.
A bobblehead
Or their kids' Cheerdale
or
in the
their
back
trunk
window.
full of stuff. It's
Whatever. You
their
can
why
find it
is
out.
in their area.
Yeah. Or on the day that you get to wear a hat to work or your favorite
Yeah.
jersey, you'll figure out their team.
Yes.
It just makes a middle note.
Yeah, I give them a hard time if it's not a good team.
But you know that's what drives them.
Yeah.
So next on that piece there, and I know we spent some time, but if you don't identify these things, you can't move to step 2 we're going to talk about.
I'll just go home.
But the strengths and their weaknesses.
Yeah.
Growing up, I can remember everybody always talking about you got to work on your weaknesses. You got to work on your weaknesses, and you got to work on your weaknesses. I think that's kind of flip-flopped a little bit out there mentality-wise. Is you always need to be improving on areas you could improve, but a better concept is how do you double down on your strengths?
Yes.
Well, and in our business, we're talking about people doing daily activities. So maybe it's phone calls. Maybe it's videos, social posts, emails, demonstrations. Every one of our guys, Taylor, they're not good at all of those, are they?
No, not at all. And it's important to get in there and see, this goes back to a couple episodes before of having the group around you that's able to delegate and send them out to be able to help in different aspects. But being able to see your staff that's around you, that you may have somebody that's, really strong in social. They're really good at that as far as doing anything there of graphics. And you take some of our older employees that we have, and we have a graphics team we put together now for that very reason, because it would take them all day long to put a graphic together to market that out there. But what we were able to do is be able to have someone to help on their weakness, but their strength is following up with the customer. So going around and knowing that your whole team's not going to be the exact same way. They're going to be able to be strong in this area, strong in the other area, and they're going to be able to complement each other. If not, you're going to have two racehorses that are banging their heads against each other.
You really are. I know I think in our business all the time, we'll have a referral of a customer coming in.
Yes.
And we always talk about it, like, who do you want me to get on with? It's not because we have favorites in the dealership. We're trying to figure out which personalities match the best. So is it a female we need to put a female with? Is it somebody younger? Is it somebody older? Do they have like interest? And that's really important, is finding those strengths and connecting them together.
Yeah, I had a customer the other day. It's really important you bring that up. It's kind of a quick tip of being able to pivot and be in the middle of that. I had a customer pull me out, want to talk to right in the middle of, they were going through buying a vehicle.
Okay.
And the salesman that was with them was a little bit younger. He's real eager go-getter, but they weren't meshing together. And they felt that he wasn't really listening to them and the different aspects there. So I said, Taylor, he's not bad. I don't think he's bad. I said, hey, just stop there. I know what you're saying. And I said, I've got 40 other guys. I said, you get to pick whoever you want to go through this process with. We switched, audibled in the middle of it. They loved it.
It's good.
Raving fans. By the end of it, they've been back again, and they've talked about how great the service was, that they've never been offered that in a different place. You can only have that whenever you have different people that are different strengths, different weaknesses, that you can mesh with different customers.
That's
So really big.
And understanding if you're on the bad side of that.
Yes.
2 ears, one mouth. You need to learn and adapt.
Yes.
Like, you need to be able to take the temperature of the situation. And as good leaders and good managers, you need to realize that. If you're saying, no, here's how we do it, here's what's done, and here's how we're going to do it, and you can see on the other side, most of the time you can't see, right, what they'll tell you is, hey, this has been great. Thank you so much. It's no different than a restaurant experience.
No.
You're not going to, I'm going to order a steak and they bring me a hot dog. I'm going to order the hot dog. I'm not going to complain. I'll just never show up again.
Yeah.
It's less confrontation. But if you're in that situation, you need to learn and adapt to maybe slow down and read the defense. Read your customer.
Yeah.
Read the situation.
Yeah, you really do. And that's so important to understand. Yeah, we're figuring out the why. But in order to get them to accomplish their why, you've got to figure out your employee's strengths and weaknesses.
You have to.
Because, like, okay, we got a dream, all right? Now, I heard Maxwell say this the other day, John Maxwell. He said dreams are free. So we can dream all day long. He said the work comes into the action to be able to accomplish the dream. Yeah. So that's in their strengths and their weaknesses. And then as good managers, you pull that out. You put them a roadmap together on here's your daily activities you need to be able to accomplish your why.
Yeah. And I think as a leader, as a manager, you just got to make sure that you have a full array in your toolbox. That you don't, and Taylor was talking about that, just two racehorses. You need to make sure the person that's driven by not just selling the most or trying to make the most money or clocking the most hours or first here for last out, just of all different variances, so you're well-rounded. So it's not all eggs in one basket.
No.
Before we go to the next subject, this just came to my mind, and I think some people need to understand this because there is a slippery slope. When you start talking to an employee about what their hot buttons are or what their why is, that could turn into a really long conversation. That then all the time they want to talk to you about this new golf club they bought, or they want to talk to you about where they rode or where they went on vacation. So you got to be able to engage, care enough, extract, show them you care, but it can't be an hour conversation, and it can't be non-productive.
That's really hard. There's an art in that. Matt's really good at. You have to be able to listen and learn. But, Matt's really good at slipping out of a situation. It's like, oh, yeah, hey, tell Taylor about that. He's interested, So of understanding that. And it's not because you don't care. Because, like, you open your door to listen.
Sure.
And then you say, yeah, absolutely, let's dive into this. I've got this next 15 minutes. Just set proper expectations. Hey, I've got a quick 5 minutes. My ears are all yours. And I'm going to take notes, and then we can circle back to this. But here's what I want to do for you. Because otherwise, you can't effectively listen.
You can't.
Your phone's getting blown up, and you know that you had to be in a meeting 3 minutes ago. And make sure if you've got somebody's ear, I just have to pause. Don't dump all your trash on them. Do not, because I'm going to be very not eager to open my door again to that person.
We call about that the jump box theory.
Yeah.
In the morning you go find the dead jump box to get you going for the day.
No.
But that's a good point you put on there. But I do want, so some people are like, well, Matt, I hear that you get out of situations and you ask, but you don't stay there for too long. Here's what had to happen in my mind to understand and be okay with that. Shelby brings up a great point that about just setting expectations. Hey, I got 5 minutes or I got 10 minutes or whatever, and I'm all yours. After that, I do have to get to the next piece because as a manager, more than likely, you are responsible for more than one mouth to feed. Okay, and in our case, sometimes it's 200, 250. So you got to spend enough time, but not too much time, because if you spend too much time, it's taken from everybody else too.
Absolutely.
So that's really big. Anything else you want to add on hot buttons or whys, strengths, weaknesses?
I think we definitely broke the surface there and kind of dove into it a little bit.
You have to do that before you do the next.
Yes.
There's an order. It's like you got to get off on the snap count before you can run the flea flicker.
Yeah.
And if you jump off sides, I don't care how fast your receivers are.
Hey, I will tell you, you asked for it. Make notes, right?
That's good.
There's an old saying that your worst ink pen is better than your best memory. Write it down. Because you're going to have a lot of people, and chances are when you get out of that one-on-one with that person, learn about their family or their why, someone's going to have 12 tickets for you to sign or got an issue or there's a heat case, and you're not going to remember their wife's name, their kid's name, what the track was they were racing at, and then you feel awful, and then you might dodge them because you're like, shoot, I don't remember. So write it down.
I would agree. Hey, we got to get a fun fact for you, quiz of this week before we get into the next part here. So the fun fact of the week for you guys to think about, who created the first electric vehicle? Now, I love this question because this goes to my school days.
Yes.
Much easier than having to write the question out. I get multiple choice. Okay.
I'm good at
So we got Elon Musk. We got Tesla. I thought those two were the same. I guess not.
No.
We got Henry Ford, or we got Robert Anderson.
Yes.
So those are the four to think about as we dive into the next. And then we'll also make sure to stay tuned. We got a little What Did You Drive segment that we'll talk about. Got a real world stuff.
You're going to want to stick around.
That'll be good. I know.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right, so next up, when it gets challenging.
When it gets challenging, but we're talking about employees. We're not talking about when it gets challenging. So the first point I want to hit is managing difficult people. And let's talk high performers.
Okay.
Managing difficult people and understand it's so difficult. I'll set this up and let you guys dive into it. Of understanding it's not policies and procedures you have to have.
You do.
Otherwise everyone runs rampant. But then understanding employee A, employee B, employee C, and it's not because your favoritism to this person, this person, but because we understood what their why was, and they clock way more hours than someone else. If they're a technician, they sell way more cars than the other. You get to maybe manage them differently than the other ones, right? So why don't you guys dive into that of maybe how to manage a high maintenance or a difficult employee.
Yeah. So I'll dive into, obviously the sales side of employees and we run into this more times than not now with the current generation that's coming into our workplace. So, not necessarily that you've got to put your time in and work, because that's just an age-old deal that gets told to generation come. Hey, you got to put your time in. Hey, you got to put your time in. When more it's, hey, show me your worth. And whenever your worth comes in and I call it your sweat equity of your working hard is noticed and acknowledged and everything else, then you can get placed into where you need to go. But of having a salesperson that's performing, and when Shelby was talking about policies, we have policies to keep everything in line. And all in between those policies of your two borders is going to be where everything lives. And that's your job as a manager. And it's one of the tough things that is in this business of knowing, hey, I've got A and B, but I've got everything in between right here. Or call it more of an A and a C, that you've got B that's going to be all different in the middle of it. But managing that employee of holding them all accountable. So you've got that one employee that's going to go wide open. He'll sell, but his selling doesn't look like this guy's selling over here that's going to have to call of an X, Y, and Z of a 40 to 50 calls. This guy's going to text message a lot of people. He knows a lot of people. He's going to have a word of mouth that's coming in. He's not going to make the same 40 to 50 phone calls like you're having the new guy starting over here.
So that's a good point. We say, hey, here's your policies and procedures. So as a salesperson, we say you have to do X.
Yes.
So you need to make at least 50 phone calls. You need to at least make 5 social posts a day. You need to at least talk to 5 customers in the service drive. We have a whole list.
Yes.
But then maybe you have a guy that's selling 25 or 30 a month. Do you have to hold them to the same standard of making 50 phone calls a day?
So then where I go into, and Matt, then I'm going to throw it to you of get your take on it, but of that guy that I have in there, you gauge their productivity level, their activity level, because you're engaged with the employee. And how you answer to this other guy is saying, hey, he's producing. I'm over here supporting him like I want to support you. Now, you're at a different level. You're growing your clientele. So you have to do these processes. Plant the seeds, water the seeds, and your tree is going to grow. He already has a garden growing over here. So what he's doing is maintaining, and it's at a different stage than you are currently. So it's making sure you're splitting the two different circumstances, and you're making sure and walking through with them. Hey, my job here as a manager is to support you to make you the most successful at your business. And it is helping him with gathering all of his customers that he have. And over here, it's helping you gain customers and get more into your pipeline.
So I think what's important there to note is what Taylor's focusing on. I said, when we're flexible, let's call it. When we're flexible with employees, we're flexible because of their results, not because of their tenure.
No.
So too many people get caught up there. They're like, well, just because so-and-so's been with us for 12 years, give them a flexible schedule.
No.
Well, if they're not producing, sports are a great analogy of that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care how long you've been in the NFL. If you're not producing, your contract will not get renewed.
No.
It won't. There will be somebody else in line. I'm going to back up just a little bit because you hit on something great there about the policies and procedures. I want you to think about it, leaders, from this angle. Policies and procedures are your roadmap. So it's like you put the GPS in your vehicle.
Yes.
But there's a good chance you're going to come up to somewhere where maybe an accident happened. Maybe they're working on the road where you got to take a detour.
Yeah.
You're still on the way to the same destination.
Correct.
But you just had to kind of work around. So no different with one of our high performers. Now remember, we're talking about being flexible with high performers. We're not talking about underperformers.
No.
This needs to be very clear because we didn't say this. We're not talking about being flexible with the person that is underachieving or whatever your metrics are in your business. In ours, it's not for somebody that's selling 3 to 5 cars a month. We're talking about somebody, if our average is 12, we're talking about somebody that sells 20 cars a month, 30 cars a month. The results prove that we should be more flexible with them.
Yeah.
So to Taylor's point, if we got somebody that's selling 20 cars a month and they're not making their 50 phone calls a day, they're still selling 20, 30 cars a month. What else can you do to help them?
Yeah.
That's a different conversation than the person selling 5 cars a month that has not made 50 calls. So as a manager, think about that approach for a second. The guy who's underachieving, you sit down and you say, let's look at how we can get more phone calls out. Your results aren't where they should be. Let's look at your daily activities. You don't go hammer the person that's selling 30 and say, hey, you only made 25 phone calls yesterday. Your conversation with them is, what else can I do to help you be more successful? See, 2 different people, neither one of them achieve the 50 phone calls a day, but they're at different spots and results. Same thing with a technician. Our technicians are based upon hours turned every week. So if you take a 40-hour week, if I got somebody that turned 65 hours, and if I got somebody that turned 25 hours, when I go talk to them, that's 2 different conversations. Yes. I'm trying to get the 25-hour guy to at least the 40-hour mark. So I'm looking at their daily activities. Let's look at your efficiency. How quick are you getting the vehicle in the stall? How quick are you getting estimates written up? How's your communication with the advisor and with parts? For somebody that's turning to 65 or 70 hours, what else can I get for you to be more? I don't need to walk through the communication process with them.
No, it's kind of a waste of time and a waste
really
of effort. And it's a tricky thing. And we've had people that stumble along the way of what do you mean? And we've had lots of conversations and we're always happy to listen. But at the end of the day, it's because it's a proven record. And it's not just our record.
Sure.
It's like a business record of what works. No different than the NFL player.
That's right.
Hey, this guy might not be all the things you like in practice.
Sure.
But on game day, he helps you win games. And what we get to say is the person who's delivering more, whether it be more hours or helping more customers to the service drive or selling more cars, the customers have enjoyed that process.
Yes.
Right? And their proof is they've enjoyed that process more because they're selling more, which means that the world needs to keep coming around, right? We sell more cars, we service more cars, we get to give back more to the community. So understanding that, and there's no right or wrong answer, but just realize that. And a lot of your noise comes from the poor performers.
They sure do, because they're sitting there, and man, that's a whole other podcast about the meeting
so much
after the meeting.
extra time.
They're the ones stirring the pot. So
yes.
I do want to note this for everybody listening. We are not talking about making an exception for a high performer that is doing something unethical
Correct.
or illegal.
Correct.
Okay, so that is a hard no. Don't think we're pushing you that way. Get rid of it. I don't care what they're producing.
Doesn't matter.
It's not worth the consequences there. Or, now this is a tough one for people, okay? The one who's a bad apple.
Yes.
You know what I mean? What if they're selling 35 cars a month? What if they're turning 70 hours, but they stir the pot and they bring everybody else down?
There's something I've always believed, and it's be very slow to hire, which is so tricky because we need people, and quick to fire.
Yep.
And that could be taken out of context, but also there's a whole lot more context to it of understanding. But your bad apple, they have the extra time. They've already made the decision it's okay to survive on selling 3 or 4 cars, or maybe that's not their spot in the dealership or in your business. But they're okay with that. So now they want to try to bring everybody else's average down so they're not sitting at the bottom of the metrics. So then they're making all the noise.
They really are. So here's a tip for you on that. When you get a new hire, you need, especially those first 90 days, you have to watch who they're hanging out with. Because guess who is easy for them to recruit over? The underperformers.
Yes.
Do you know why underperformers recruit the new hires?
They want people.
Because they bring the average down and it makes them look better.
That's it.
Yes.
Hold on. We don't work through lunch, partner. You know, it's like the classic old school movie.
yeah.
Like, hold on. We don't punch in just yet or whatever it is, right?
I don't know that I can necessarily call out some of the industries or different workforces out there that we've all talked about, that where we see people taking extra long to perform.
Yeah,
y'all could probably
pass
fill it
one of
in.
them on the way.
You know, but you know, some types of those, that's their culture. Is like, whoa, partner, I know you can do this in 30 minutes, but we take about 2 hours.
yeah,
They're
Which is
trying to
not
bring
our
average.
way of doing business.
It's not.
If it says in there it should take 2 hours, I'm figuring out how to do it in 27 minutes.
But the only way you can get your culture to be that way is you have to remove the ringleader that's trying to bring everybody down. Usually that ringleader is not your high performer.
No.
You know what I mean? They're giving them the HR intro after HR did.
Yes, and you didn't even ask them for it. You don't even pay them for it.
Not at
And
all.
They're getting paid. So that transition.
There's one other thing you got to hit here before
Okay.
you go. See, y'all diving
can tell
into it,
it's
fired
good.
up. No, it's good. So I want the listeners to understand that your we love referencing racehorses, running back, anything else.
Yeah.
Your top performer doesn't get a hall pass for accountability. Your accountability that you go and hold them to is at a whole different level. Hey, I need you to run this 100-yard sprint and you're going to kill it.
Yeah.
Where if you ask your 5-car guy to do it, he'd say, I've never ran 1 yard before.
Exactly.
So you hold them accountable to it's a different level. Say, hey, I need you. It's game time. We're going to go. Because they know whenever the curtain's open, you got to go. But even your high performers, Shelby, we had this example, and I love it. You know, if you see any of our stuff on Facebook, this was so good in a meeting the other day, and I loved it. If you see any of our stuff on Facebook, we love taking red carpet photos. It's one of our signature things that we get into, and we love seeing the whole aspect of it and everything else of how it transitions to the customer loving it, the customer seeing it. Well, one of our racehorses that does really good, and we always hand the ball off to him when we can, because we know he's going to do a good job. Well, he gets busy. Everyone gets busy. Shelby, what was the example? What happened?
Yeah, so
I'm sorry to go off.
No, this is great.
Good example.
This is real. Like, forget all the life lessons of but understand. So we do red carpet photos because it's people go to the red carpet because it's fun and exciting. And so we have specific red carpets at all of our dealership, and it is a mandation. Mandation still gets broken, and that's what happened here. That you take a red carpet photo with your new car. Even if you don't. I sold a guy that serviced all dealerships, and I said, hey, get out here. Let's take your red carpet photo. He said, Shelby, I can't do that. All these other dealerships are... And I said, well, stand beside me, because I want you to know when you go home, here's your red carpet photo of your brand new truck, that you're special, even if you don't want to be in it. So fast forward Sunday, I'm sitting down having lunch with my family, and my middle son, Elliot, he said... Dad, I got to tell you the story. I said, okay, go ahead. And he's giving me his version of it. He said, Miss Chelsea from my school bought a car from you guys. I said, oh, awesome. He said, yeah, and I'm going to use names because he knows, and I gave him a hard time about it. He said, but I sent him in to go see the preacher.
Yeah.
And I said, you sent him in to see the preacher?
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, I did. Said, she bought a car from you guys. I said, that's awesome. He said, yeah, fast forward. He didn't say fast forward. It was in his words, but he said, Dad, I was so excited. I asked her, I said, hey, Miss Chelsea, did you get your red carpet photo?
Oh, no.
And she said, no, I didn't get one. And I said, oh, L.A., what happened? He said, I don't know. He said, I was kind of like, I didn't know what to say. He was trained. And not because we have, on Sundays, we don't sit down and say, hey, live, here's how. He's seen the photos because we do it. And so I told Garfield, like, hey, look.
And that's just holding your racehorses accountable, your top performers accountable, because no matter how good they are, they'll get lax.
They'll do that because when we say racehorses, we grew up with horses.
That's why,
we got to clean horse stalls.
Sure.
And so our good horses that we rode and our nice horses, they would kick the stalls out. And they would kick the boards through. And so we got to fix the boards. But they were worth it to not sell them or get rid of them because they were a good horse. It's like, Dad, why would you keep this horse? He's like, no, it's worthwhile to fix the stalls because it's a good horse that has good bloodlines or is good to show. And so we're like, oh, it's worthwhile. But then as Dad would always say, well, bite the horse back. So we would bite the ear of the horse and never hard enough to hurt Peter's feelings.
That's a country thing. If you're listening on here.
I think the point there, too, is you got to understand, and let's stay on the horse theme here because it's easy, is you need thoroughbreds in there. You need some to win the race. And you need the old gray mare.
You
know what I mean?
We grew up on the gray mare.
So nobody that's ever ridden before, they're not going to buck, they're not going to run. But you can't have a stable full of them.
No.
You know what I mean?
Fun.
You got to have a mix of all of it. But you got to be ready. If you want the high performers, you could ask any professional team out there, the general manager or the coach, they say, this person is so difficult to manage and rein in.
They're like, that person's a pure nightmare.
I know.
What do they do?
But they figured out. But then they win games. They draw the people. They win the games. You know, so you got to be ready as a manager. You can't just have the easy ones that never bring you any conflict because you're never going to hit your goals.
No.
You got to have a mix. You can't have all thoroughbreds in there. You got to have a good mix.
So how do we handle poor performers? People that aren't hitting the metrics.
That aren't hitting the metrics and no results?
That are not hitting the results. Poor performers.
So there's three things, and you guys know what three things I'm getting ready to say. If you were to come into my office and you say, hey, I need to let person X go.
Yes.
They're underperforming. They're not hitting their metrics. There's three questions that every time we ask. Have you, like looking in the mirror, have you given them the time, the tools, and the training necessary? Not an online course, not somebody else. Have you yourself given them the time, the tools, and the training necessary to succeed? If the answer is yes to that, move them on. If the answer is no to that, it's staring back at you in the mirror of the problem.
Yeah, it is super important. So you say you got the squeaky wheel, or you got the person that's not doing it. You need to make sure, have you given them the opportunity and the roadmap to succeed? If you just hired them at a busy time and said, I need more people, tossed them out there, gave them a training manual, said this training manual is proven, get out there, have fun, sell some cars, take a red carpet photo. You have not given them time, tools, or training, and it's your fault. So now you get to sit down and figure out, will they make it?
You do.
No?
So then I would send you back out of the office. Okay, go put those in place. I'm going to say this next part here. I have been plenty guilty of that, and I'm just going to say y'all have too, and you know it. Is that you think an employee knows they're underperforming? They don't. And it's like, it's the most, and some of you managers out there and leaders are listening, you're like, I know exactly what you're talking about. Why did they not see the writing on the wall that they were underperforming? You have to sit down in a one-on-one, call it an employee review, a quarter review, whatever it may be, and address it before the fire's out of control.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's coaching along the way of like, hey, here's you got to set the goals and the expectations for them.
Yep.
And then along the way, you got to keep them going, whatever gets them going. And then in the end, if the result's good, bad, or ugly, you say, hey, here's where we're at, here's what we set, and here's where we landed. Landed good job, amazing. Hey, man, I appreciate that. What were the good, one of our things that we review is, hey, what were the good things that you did? Now let's 10x down on those. Hey, if there's one thing that you think you didn't do good, let's delete that. Let's delete that person's phone number. Hey, let's delete that habit, delete that app.
Sure.
The underperformers, we're going to say, hey, what did you consume your time with?
Exactly.
Last month? And so, and that it's easy to get out of that rhythm.
So
we try to do that every single month to realize that, to help that person be as successful. Because the more people that we can help be successful, then the bigger our business gets, and the more that we can help, and it's just a full circle.
Yeah, you have to document that. Matt and Shelby both touched that there. Talking about it, doing it, but it has to be documented because non-verbally that's going to help you move forward.
I want to talk about some success stories, how we've helped people, but before that, let's get back into our facts.
So fun fact quiz of the day, we asked who created the first electric vehicle.
Okay.
Was it Elon Musk, Nikola Tesla, I don't know if that's two of the same, Henry Ford, or Robert Anderson?
I don't know.
It's got to be with a guy that
You would
don't
think
even
it was Elon
know.
Musk, who currently owns 75% of the satellites orbiting around.
That's what you think. Or somebody with the last name Tesla.
Yeah, or-
that's a swag.
Yeah.
But you know what? If I don't know the answer, like
I'm
in
gonna go with
school,
somebody I
you always got to
know.
go with C.
Yeah.
And that's the rule of thumb. You go with C, but it's Henry Ford, and I don't.
Yeah.
That's not right. It was Robert Anderson in 1832. Think about that.
Wow, Lee.
Henry Ford created the assembly line in the early 1900s. I think 1913
Yeah.
or
6 or
something.
something.
Created the first Model T in like 1902. In 1832, Robert Anderson must have been buddies with some buddies and plugged something into something.
Wow,
I
they-
wasn't alive. I don't know.
wasn't
But
either.
I
Or
think
let's
probably
see.
most people were wrong there.
So what's next on the table, Taylor?
You know, rolling into there, it's talking conflict to success. So taking whenever you're running into any of those conflicts and turning it into success. So it's just taking a difficult or challenging situation with an employee, whether it be they're underperforming, they're kicking the stall, they're being disruptive, they're being muddying the whole water of the whole group. How do you handle that?
I'm going to talk about technicians here. We did some discovery. It's probably been 18 months, 2 years now. We did some discovery with technicians, especially the high performers that were leaders. And we said, what is the issue? Why are we not getting more out of them? What makes them tick? What's their why? Why do we have these roadblocks and they're not turning more hours? And then they were starting to kind of get disgruntled. Even some of our top technicians were hitting the ceiling of 55 or 58 or maybe 60 hours a week, and they were just killing themselves. And they started really getting in their head and like, what am I doing? Is this what I want to do? So on and so forth. We had to start peeling back the layers. And we said, what are the issues? Well, the amount of time that it takes me to get parts, the amount of time it takes to, get with the advisor, or these other small things that I have to do the job, but are way not using my skill set. I'm not able to turn more hours because of all those roadblocks. So it came up of, well, let's look at assistants. Well, that became apprentices.
Yes.
Where then we said, hey, what if we gave each person an apprentice, which did two things, helped that top performing tech, and then two, allowed some training to graduate them to be able to go then on the line. That took a lot of our technicians that were top performers that were getting frustrated, is now they have an assistant, yet they're training somebody for us, so it's a win-win. And then we saw hours go to 70, 80, and then I know we even got
90 plus. Yeah.
90 plus per week.
It's rocking.
So if we wouldn't have stepped back and gone, we got two issues here, dealership issue of needing more trained techs, high-performing technician issues of needing help to turn more hours, we would have never come up with the apprentice program.
Yeah, and I think that allows us to take a rough situation and create a success story that allows us to have a training ground. Most of our employment within our dealership is generally from within. Right?
And that's the goal.
That's the goal,
That is the
right?
goal.
And salespeople, technician, are the highest turnover rate in any part of the entire dealership.
Yep.
But it's also the entry level that we get to meet most people, and then we realize, I like this person.
Yeah.
Like this person shows up to work. This girl is somebody I can count on. This guy, really has a bright future. And then we can segue them through whether they grow through the business. And we've had so many success stories. And then we get to take challenging situations, frustrated situations. And then like our service department at Ford, we were just talking about this yesterday. It is on a roll of just so much going on. And like our tenure is so good. It's the best it's been in probably 7 or 8 years. No one is overly grumpy, right? They're not blaming parts on not being able to get parts, even though we still struggle with that. And they're just, it's a well-oiled machine. I'm going to say there's probably something to do with the air conditioning, but also the new facility. And then you take that challenging situation, you create a new thing. And
What about what we did? It was probably 4 years ago, maybe going on 5 now, when we had identified in sales with delivery.
Yeah, delivery, we realized a lot of times, classic old school, like used cars, here are the keys, see the car, see you later.
Yes.
And when it came time for them to really like, oh, this is my car, I need to pay attention and listen and learn about the features. We talked about the moving parts, 30,000 moving parts of a car. a lot of that is customer facing and stuff of how to hit buttons and how to make things work. So we remove that pain point from a salesperson. We said, hey, we want to give you that time back. So now it would process, a salesperson takes that customer to finance. They then finish in finance and take that red carpet photo.
Yep.
Yes.
And then delivery, they get paid hourly. So we tell the customer, hey, whether it's 30 minutes or 3 hours, this is your time. And we built that delivery bay inside the dealership. So it's climate controlled, so it's never concerned if it's rainy or if it's cold or if it's hot. And then that delivery person really takes great pride in knowing all the latest and greatest of technology and finding out what's important to that customer. That took a situation where customers were not loving their delivery.
Sure.
And inserted a new program. And so then we allowed people to grow through there. We've grown a lot of people through that product and delivery.
You bet. I'll tell you another story of, and this has happened multiple times, but it requires listening and pausing, where we've had an employee that had a lot of success, okay, but then maybe the 6 month to the year mark hits, and they start declining. And before you just say, hey, that employee needs to go, in our case scenario, we've got multiple stores and multiple managers. So a conversation happens, HR will get involved here too, and we peel back the layer and we go, do we just have a conflict in personalities? And I promise this has happened in your workplace too, that the personality of that manager is not making that employee tick, but they have the skill set. And I can tell you multiple times, we've got some salespeople that we have then moved into service, or that we've moved to a different sales team. Because we said, how did they mesh with that manager? Or we've taken, we had somebody in service, we moved to the office.
Yeah.
Because we looked at how does that person manage and how do they react and who maybe has a better personality to get more out of that person.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then once you learn that person has a good attitude, will show up on time, is not muddy in the water.
Sure.
There's got to be a spot.
You got to find them.
There's got to be something that lights their fire every day, right? And it's not in their current situation. So instead of letting that fire burn out and them just take you for the money that you're paying them and you don't get a good customer experience, then you say, hey, what challenges you? And then, like, hey, Kenny told us this morning, 259 employees, like, we're still hiring. We need a lot of people. So
I think you put a good point there. Everybody needs to know if you've got a good employee that shows up, they don't have a bad attitude, and they have a good skill set, keep that employee, move their position.
Yes.
I'm going to tell you that any human being can fake it and they can put on their happy face for somewhere between 3 and 9 months, even if it's not what's most comfortable to them.
Yeah.
But then it'll show up. It's your job as a leader and a manager to sit down with them and identify that. And we've been too slow about that in the past, and something we've talked about.
Yeah.
But that's your job as a leader, because if not, somebody else is going to get that great employee.
Yeah.
And they're going to win.
And they'll speak accolades like, oh my gosh, this person was so good. And you're just like, dang it. And and Taylor and I talk about this often. He's like, hey, I got to figure out something with such and such. They're not loving the jobs. They're not doing their best. And so it's not, we have created new jobs in a 100-plus-year-old industry. Not a whole lot's changed, right? You know, now some of the cars are electric, but basically it's essentially the same. We're taking care of customers, servicing cars, and selling cars. Said, no, that person's too good.
You bet.
Let's find a problem in the dealership. You know, we have assistant service advisors now because one of the biggest issues was calling extended warranty companies. So then you as a customer couldn't get a hold of the service advisor because they write on an average of 50 to 75 tickets that they're trying to manage and maintain. And so all 50 to 75 are wondering, hey, where's my car? What's going on? And then they're also having to spend the time to call the warranty company to say, hey, this is me with Lewis Ford. I'm calling on behalf of customer C. They need this. They say we need to send an inspector. That was just a little bit of monotonous work, very important work.
For sure.
But we said, let's remove that from the service advisor, give it to an assistant service advisor that can help with that, but then also the assistant service advisor can help move the vehicles so the service advisor is available to meet, greet, call the customer. So just find that good employee, find what they're good at, and if you have to create a new job, it is what it is, right?
I would agree. Just some great lessons there to understand about your team and the positions. And you probably have an area that needs some help.
Yeah.
That you can write a new job description for, and this and that. You always need to look to evolve. Hey, Taylor, let's get into something fun here.
Hey, something fun. I'm going to throw it off the wall here, but y'all think about, and both of you will have to answer this, but of an FAQ, a frequently asked question that you get asked. What is your top one if you had to pick out of? And I know I'm throwing it to you and you hadn't even thought about it, but on a day-to-day basis, what is it you get asked? And Matt, let's roll to you first.
All right. What I get asked the most because of the phase we're in is when we moved the dealership, how did you move all those cars?
Oh my God.
That's the number one
How did
thing.
you move all those cars? The cars were the easy part. Now I'm going to go way in depth here. The most challenging piece was moving parts.
Oh, my God.
Because the thousands and thousands and thousands of parts that had to be re-inventoried and re-binned and moved. The cars took less than 4 hours.
Yes.
The cars were the easy part.
Yes, we had about 4 or 5 different passenger vans that had 60 to 70 people each, and it took 4 or 5 trips. So that one was pretty easy. Shelby, what about you?
Yeah, you totally just threw that at my whim. But
I know.
I'll say a lot of people just ask me like, "Hey, what's your favorite car?"
Yes.
You know, that's a question I get all the time.
Yes.
I have to tell you, like, I grew up around cars. My first car was a Mustang when I was 14. And I've always been a hot rod. I'm a speed guy. Generally, I've probably honked at you in the fast lane. They make a slow lane for a reason. Move over. It's kind of become. I apologize if I have bashed. It's my fault, not yours. But I love cars. But I've gotten so much into the business of things. Like, I'll just drive whatever, and by whatever I don't mean the fancy nice things. Taylor gives me a hard time. He's like, Shelby, why don't you get something nice? Or like, I still have the window sticker on the
He
side.
still has the window sticker on the back.
Because it's for sale.
It's
all the time.
It's for sale, and I'll tell you, it's always for sale because one time I came back from. It was like
Not
a
when your
Paul guy
box
meeting,
was stuck.
and the only thing left in my parking spot was my gym bag and a box of my stuff. So I live out of a box and a bag. But people always ask me what's my favorite car. And I was telling somebody the other day, one of our guys bought a Ranger Raptor, and he said, "Hey, go see if you can tell the difference," because we were putting a tune on it. And I said, "I've never driven one of these." And somebody was like, "Hey, have you driven the 5.0?" I was like, "No, I haven't driven it." Like,
no.
you just get like tied up in
You're
the
just diving in the
business of
middle of
things.
it.
But I'm a Ford guy. I love performance, so GT500, which I don't currently make, but love that. But I'm an F-150 guy through and through. Because I'm a hookup,
So it makes
heaviest thing.
Well,
that
because
you
how
can
they drive.
They drive amazing.
they
It's
do
like the
drive good.
best driving car, truck, thingamajigs. If
Sure.
I can just drive it off of a cliff, not the one I'm driving. But
Remember, we got to sell this.
yeah. No, this one's extremely nice. It's ready to go. Run through the car washed off and to make sure it's ready to go.
Absolutely.
But people always ask, hey, what's your favorite car?
Yep. So fun questions in there, diving into it and wrapping it up there. I kind of think getting into takeaways from today. Let's get into Shelby. I'll throw it back to you. What's your takeaway from today's discussion?
I think it is extremely important, and I started with this, is to understand your employees.
Yes.
Take 5 minutes each day and get to know your employees and realize that they're humans. The same way that you want to be treated, they want to be treated. And as soon as you can figure that out, you can help them excel to the next level. So is get to know your employees is what I'll say, and then you can help them go to the next level.
Mm-hmm. I would say even though you must put policies and procedures in place, as long as you're getting to the end result and it's not hurting your business illegally or ethically, and they're not a bad apple, you need to be flexible. Don't put the underperformer and the high achiever in the same box.
Absolutely. So making sure you are flexible in your manager roles that you're in. So making sure that you're helping employees. And the favorite thing I always go back to is listening. Remember to yourself, no matter what circumstance you're in, whether it's talking to a customer, whether it's dealing with an employee, you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. Listen way more than you speak. Always process, take it in. Then that way you can put it out and make sure you're taking care of the employee the way you need to.
Hey, make sure to visit our website at lewissuperstore.com. And we'd love for you to smash that subscribe button, like button. Hey, leave us a comment if you want to. That'd help us out. We want to know the content you're facing out there in Northwest Arkansas, how we can help you, maybe by some of our examples in that leadership and management role. Check out crossroadconversationspodcast.com, and thanks for tuning in this week.
Yeah, and if there's a guest you want on here or the topic you want to cover, please let us know.
Yep.
As we're working on this thing, just say, hey, I'd love to be on here. And if it's Garfield, you're not coming on, but anybody else, let's go. Hey, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to give it a like, share it with your friends and family, even visit our website, send us the questions about what you want to know, what you want to hear, tell us about the automotive industry, family business in general. Who do you want to hear from? Send them our way, and we'll do our best to answer any questions you have, but make sure you tune in next time where we bring in another guest and we talk more about the automotive industry and all the great things going on within our business.